If you've ever used ChatGPT and wondered, wait, how is this even possible? You're not alone. You type in a question and within seconds, it gives you a detailed answer. It explains things, it writes code, it even sounds kind of human. But here's the thing, it's not magic and it's not thinking the way that we do. Behind that chat box is something way more fascinating and honestly, a little mind-blowing once you understand it. In this video, I'm gonna break down exactly what's actually happening when you talk to ChatGPT in plain English, no tech jargon, and with examples that you'll actually understand. So let's start with what ChatGPT actually is. It's something called a large language model, or an LLM for short, and it was created by a company called OpenAI. But here's the key thing. Everything I'm going to explain in this video doesn't just apply to ChatGPT. It applies to any major language model out there. So whether you're using Claude by Anthropic, Gemini by Google, Copilot by Microsoft, Perplexity, it doesn't really matter. They all follow the same basic principle. Take a massive amount of text, train a model to recognize patterns in language, and then generate responses based on predicting what's most likely to come next. We're using ChatGPT as our example in this video because it's one of the most popular platforms and it's probably the one that you already use. But if you understand how ChatGPT works, you're going to understand how they all work. All right, so what exactly is a large language model? At its core, an LLM is a specific type of artificial intelligence that's trained to understand and generate human language. It doesn't speak, it doesn't think, but it can mimic both incredibly well. The large part just means that it's been trained on a massive amount of data. We're talking billions of words here. We're talking books, articles, websites, Reddit posts, and pretty much anything text-based you can think of are typically used to train these models on how to learn the patterns of human language. But here's the thing, it doesn't actually memorize the internet. It just learns how words tend to flow, what phrases usually follow others, and what a good sentence looks like. So think of it like this. It's kind of like a DJ that's heard every song ever made. They don't make brand new music from scratch. They just remix little bits and pieces of everything they've heard, stitching them together in a way that feels original. So that's basically what an LLM is doing, just with language instead of music. It's not thinking, it's predicting, based on everything that it's listened to, or in other words, that it's been trained on. So how did ChatGPT actually learn how to do all this? Well, during its training, it was fed an absolutely massive amount of text. We're talking hundreds of billions of words here. Its job wasn't to memorize that information. Its job was to play a giant game of fill in the blank. Over and over again, it would see a sentence with a word missing and then try to guess what that word should be based on everything that it had seen before. So kind of like this. If I say peanut butter and, it learns that jelly is usually the most likely word that comes next. But here's the thing, it really just comes down to a game of probability. So it's not always going to be jelly 100% of the time. So based on the probability, for example, maybe out of 100 times, maybe jelly is going to be the most likely word 90 times out of 100. But there could be other variations here. There could be peanut butter and banana, for example. Could be maybe another 2 times out of 100. So the thing is, it's not just set in stone. If I say peanut butter and, it's gonna say jelly every single time. It's really a game of probability. So it's using math and data and everything that it's seen in the patterns before to predict what the most likely option is gonna be for that next word in the sentence that it's forming. Then it does it again and again and again, millions of times per second. This repetition creates a kind of internal map of language, so it's able to understand patterns of what words go together, how grammar works, and what phrases make sense in different contexts. And here's where things get wild. All of that learning takes place inside something called a neural network, which is a structure that's loosely inspired by the human brain. But instead of neurons, it uses something called parameters, which are kind of like tiny switches that can adjust and fine-tune the model's predictions over time. So just to give you a little context here, GPT-4, the model behind ChatGPT, has over 1 trillion of these parameters, which is pretty mind-blowing. It's like having 1 trillion tiny little dials all working together to predict what word comes next. It's not memorizing, it's just tuning itself to the rhythms and patterns of human language. All right, now let's get to the part that you really came for. So what's actually happening when you type something into ChatGPT? It all starts with the prompt, which is the message that you write. But before the model can respond, it breaks that message down into tokens. And tokens are just chunks of text. They could be full words, partial words, or even punctuation marks. So for example, how are you today might become 5 or 6 separate tokens. So once your prompt has been tokenized, those tokens pass through the model's neural network. And this is where the magic really begins. Using everything that it learned during its training, it begins to predict the next token, and then the next one, and the next one. It begins to build your reply one token at a time, kind of like laying bricks in real time. Each word you see is chosen based on what the model thinks is most likely to come next, not necessarily what is true, but what is statistically the best fit. So here's a way to think about it. It's kind of like autocomplete on steroids. So imagine playing a game where you're only allowed to write one word at a time, and your goal is to sound like an expert. That's basically what the model is doing, just a billion times faster. So this whole process is called inference. The model is inferring the next best word based on your inputs and everything that it's seen before. It's not retrieving facts, it's predicting patterns. So if ChatGPT is just guessing words, why does it feel so smart? It's because it's really, really good at spotting patterns. It's read more text than any human ever could, and it's learned how we write, how we ask questions, and how we explain things. It can mimic different writing styles, answer with confidence, and even reference facts that it's seen during training. So when you ask it something, it doesn't feel like you're getting a guess, it feels like you're getting an expert. But here's the catch, and it's an important one. ChatGPT doesn't actually understand anything. It doesn't know you, it doesn't know what's true, and it definitely doesn't think. It's not an expert, it's a master of plausibility, not truth. That means that sometimes it makes things up completely. These are called hallucinations, which is when the model confidently gives you an answer that sounds right, but is totally wrong. It's not lying, it's just doing what it was trained to do. Predict what's most likely, not necessarily what's fact-checked or verified. All right, so now that you know how it works, let's talk about what ChatGPT can actually do really well and what some of its limitations are. So ChatGPT is great for a lot of things, including summarizing long documents in seconds. It's great for brainstorming, so things like content ideas, titles, outlines, things of that nature. It helps with writing, scripting, and even translation across many, many different languages. You can write code, fix bugs, and explain really complex technical concepts in really simple, easy to understand terms. And honestly, it's kind of like having a 24/7 assistant that never sleeps, complains, or charges overtime. That being said, it definitely does have its limitations, and these are important to understand. So a few things that it can't really do as well. It can't really verify facts or think critically. It just mimics what it's seen before. It doesn't truly understand tone, emotion, and nuance the way that a human would. And it does have a tendency to make stuff up from time to time through those hallucinations that we were talking about earlier. So if you're relying on it for truth, judgment, or insight, you should definitely be the one steering the ship. Because remember, it's not thinking, it's just pattern matching at scale. So to provide a quick recap here, what's actually happening when you talk to ChatGPT? You're not chatting with a brain, you're interacting with a prediction engine that's trained on the internet, that builds sentences one word at a time, that never truly understands a single word that you say. And honestly, that doesn't make it any less powerful. It might be even more powerful if you know how to use it right. Because at the end of the day, this tool can help you work faster, create smarter, and even launch entire businesses more easily than ever before. So if you want to learn how to actually use ChatGPT and other AI tools to build smarter systems, create better content, and unlock new business ideas, then check out my free school community called AI Quest. The link's down below. So one thing I do want to highlight for the sake of this video, once you're actually in the community, you'll get access to Quest OS, which is our Notion-based operating system, which has a ton of stuff in here. I'm not going to go over everything because there is just a ton in here, including a prompts database with over 250 prompts, a bunch of the best AI-based tools. But the thing I do want to highlight is that we do have a companion resource that goes along with this video that's going to be inside of the journal section, which is where we have reviews, notes, and a dreams journal. But I'm going to highlight the notes section here. In the notes section, we have our AI glossary, which is going to be the companion document that goes along with this video. So in here, we have over 100 of the top AI terms that you should definitely know and brush up on. So some of the ones that we've definitely covered in this video, for example, we've gone over large language model, we've gone over token. So you can brush up on what these terms are, but say for example, you see a term in here that you're not familiar with, like maybe zero-shot learning. You don't know what that is. We can click in here and I've included the definition, but not only that, also an analogy and an example to help make your understanding as easy as possible. So zero-shot learning in this example is the ability of an AI to perform tasks it hasn't been explicitly trained on using general knowledge. So the analogy would be like solving a puzzle you've never seen before by applying logic from past puzzles. And an example would be asking ChatGPT to translate a new language without specific training data. So you kind of get the idea. There's a ton of different terms in here, so you can kind of go through this glossary. And this is something that we're going to continue to keep adding to over time. But this is just one of the many, many assets that you get access to inside of our school community in AI Quest. If this video helped you gain any insight or clarity on how ChatGPT works, or you now feel like you have a better understanding of large language models, then do me a huge favor and drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more AI content like this. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.